All right, so let's talk about this. First paragraph, we're just defining what stealing thunder is. And then notice here on line 7, we have what many lawyers believe. They believe it's effective. And then this whole second paragraph, who in the world would decide to write such a long paragraph, is basically evidence for the lawyers, right? And you could break this evidence into two broad categories. What would be the two categories? Psychological studies that do not apply specifically to this. I mean, they apply, but they're just general tactics, right? You should probably just take advantage of them when you think about your life. And what else? If you want to appear credible, so on.
The simulations.
The simulations, right? Not actual trials, and they made that pretty clear. So we had these simulated trials, which are pertaining directly to stealing thunder. Then we have these psychological research, I guess we could just call it that. And then I thought it was weird too that you had all this stuff in the paragraph, and then like the last paragraph was like, finally, here's another reason. Like, if you're going to keep all those together, why don't we just leave this paragraph as part of paragraph 2? But in any case, it does sort of introduce kind of the author's own theories, I think, right? And maybe that's why it's its own paragraph. But it's this spin theory. So if I'm going to summarize this paragraph, I'd say, hey, the idea is that you can spin the negative information the way you want to spin it. But there's this catch, right? What's the catch? If it's too negative, then maybe you can't, spin it, right? Sorry, just after this election, I don't know what can't be spun, right? Or just flat out ignored. Okay, in any case. Are we cool with that? So bottom line, when you step back and you look back at this, you're like, okay, so the lawyers are basically right based on this kind of evidence, except maybe there's a little takeaway here. Maybe they should be careful when they do it, because they didn't express any of those reservations at the beginning, right? The lawyers are just like, hey, if they're going to reveal bad information, then you should reveal it first. Questions about the passage? Okay. I don't think it's unreasonable to spend 4 minutes on this passage up front. 3 is not unreasonable either, but yeah.
Do you suggest kind of breaking down, like, after the fact, what was happening in each paragraph? Because, like, at the end, we're just supposed to, like, get the main point.
Yeah.
Should we, like, break it down more? Like, if there's, like, only, like, 3 paragraphs?
Well, I think that any sentence that you're reading, you should think about how that sentence relates to the passage as a whole. And I think that's more difficult up front. So, like, up front, they tell us what stealing thunder is, right? And then in the second paragraph, the second sentence, this is on line 4. While there's no point to revealing weakness that is unknown to opponents, blah, 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 many lawyers believe. I was like, okay, you just told me what stealing thunder is. Now you're telling me what many lawyers believe, right? I want to keep note of that because that's changing the function of that sentence in the paragraph as a whole. That's not telling us what the author believes. It's telling us what other people think. So at first, sometimes you're kind of going slowly to catch those things. But I felt like as soon as I got into the second paragraph, I didn't need to necessarily figure out how each sentence related to the passage as a whole, because it was just more reasons why this worked, right? But I did separate the second paragraph into 2 parts. One was the simulated trials.
Oh, and then the second.
And then the second was like a list of 3 things that were related to specific psychological research, right? The first one was credibility on line 21. The second one was critical assessment on line 26 and 7. Then we had the scarcity argument on line 35. The point is that I think it becomes easier to recognize how everything fits into the passage as a whole, but it does make sense to just pause after you read something and think to yourself, oh, this is another idea. So that when you get done, you're like, there are 3 psychological ideas, right? If there's an organization question, then you're going to nail that question. Whereas other people are going to be like, were there 2 psychological principles invoked? Were there 4, right? Things like that. So I do feel like, yes, you need to understand what the sentence is saying, and then you need to figure out how it relates to the passage as a whole, but I think that gets easier as you go along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it 4? Sorry.
Hmm?
You said 4 minutes?
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to spend 4 minutes. Oh, that's fast.
You just mean on the past, like reading part, right?
I'm just talking about the passage.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, Jay. Yeah. 4 minutes. How long did it take you, Jay? I wouldn't describe that as fast. No, just kidding. Yeah, that would be extraordinarily fast. I was surprised when you said that because most people, I think, are going through the passage itself too quickly, you know. And so I like to say, hey, 4 minutes is not unreasonable, so that you don't feel bad when you get to like 4 minutes and you think, oh, my life has been screwed. If you really understand this, then I think the questions will go fast and you get them right. Okay.